Okay, I think we can get ready to get started then. So welcome everyone to our ML paper reading club. So this event is hosted by Women in AI across the different APAC chapters. My name is Annie, so I'm from Women in AI Taiwan chapter, and I will be your host for today's session. So to start us off, let me give you a little background about our organization. So Women in AI, we are a nonprofit organization working to make AI more inclusive globally. So we were founded in 2016 with over 8,000 members across 140 countries, including places like Australia, Taiwan, Myanmar, Singapore, Japan, Philippines, and we're still expanding much more. So this community is really about women supporting other women to create a more empowering, inclusive, and diverse network through hosting various types of events like the one you're joining today. So of course, each chapter runs their own types of events in their local countries throughout the year as well. And the next big one that's coming up, which I'm also super excited for, is the Women in AI Awards, which will be taking place next year in June to celebrate some of the amazing achievements of women in STEM. So we hope to see you there. So feel free to become a part of this amazing community by scanning the QR code in the left corner of the presentation. And please do not hesitate to reach out to us if you have any additional questions or if you'd also like to become a volunteer like one of us. So this reading club is a series that has been running for a few weeks now. We're currently on to week 4. So to give everyone a quick recap on our previous events, in week 1, we had our orientation where we invited the speaker to give us a keynote session. In week 2, we had Women in AI Philippines who hosted the paper on zero-shot learning through cross-modal transfer. And last week, we had Angela, who presented an introduction to RC analysis. And today we are on to week 4, and we're very lucky to have Nay to present to us his research topic on adversarial AI, class distance hardening. So Nay is a first-year PhD student in software engineering with a research focus in AI security at Singapore Management University. He has many years of professional experience ranging from offensive, defensive security, governance, regulation, and compliance, and is also researching on designing intelligent and adaptive penetration systems. So, hi, Nay.
Hi, Annie. Thank you for introducing me here.
Yeah, for sure. So Nay will be walking through us through his research topic. If you have any questions, feel free to post in the chat box, or you can also raise your hand throughout the session if you'd like to talk to Nay yourself. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Nay right now.
Sure, I will be sharing the screen.
Great.
You can see the slide, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let me start. Sure. Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about a paper called Model Orthogonalization, Class Distance Hardening in Neural Networks for Better Security. This paper is a publication at IEEE Symposium on Security and Privacy in 2022. It has been authored by these researchers from Purdue University. My name is Nate, and I will be presenting for this paper. Okay, first of all, what is a backdoor attack? Backdoor attacks are actually becoming more and more prominent security threats to deep neural networks. Suppose we have an input, which is a dog. For a naturally trained normal model, it will be able to correctly classify it into a dog. However, if we have the backdoor that has been injected into the input to train the model, and the model that has been trained using the backdoor triggers will become Poisson model, and these models will always be incorrectly misclassifying any input as a target of fish. Okay, there has been a number of backdoor defenses in recent years. The first one is the backdoor scanning to determine if a model has an injected backdoor. And next one is the backdoor input detection, which is to detect an input with a backdoor pattern on the fly. And then the last one is the backdoor elimination. When an injected backdoor is found, they want to repair a model by removing an injected backdoor. However, all of these has been only working on the research part of the injected backdoors. As we have seen in previous picture, for the injected backdoors, the backdoors are actually intentionally being injected as a triggers from the attackers to intentionally train the model as a Poisson model to misclassify the target. However, even the clean models have backdoors. For example, in this picture, we can see that we have downloaded the benign model from the QS model zoo, and this one will misclassify the input, which has been actually used to, we use the existing trigger generation techniques such as neural fence, NC, to create a backdoor input. Then they will be even the clean model will be misclassifying the inputs into BERT. So we call these the natural backdoors. So before going into the class distance hardening, we have to get to know what is a backdoor and what we can call a class distance. So the backdoor in normal sense is a transformation T that transforms any samples of class A to induce a misclassification to class B on the model M. We can calculate the model size, backdoor size by using the LP norm of the difference between the transform input image and another one is the original input. So we can use the LP norm of the minimum backdoor from a victim class A to a target class B as a class distance. Class distances are actually directional. However, they are not symmetric. So what I mean by asymmetric here is that a distance from the class A to the class B is not actually equal to the distance to class A from the class B. We can see from this illustration here that the trigger size are different, and we can see on the right here, the distance from the bird to the turtle is noticeably larger than the distance from the turtle to the bird. So we can use the class distance to measure the robustness of the robustness to the backdoor attacks. As an intuition, how we have to think about how to enlarge the class distance to improve robustness. We can start by looking at the first picture, A, which is the normal training that everyone knows. Suppose we have two classes, and the star, two classes, which is green and the blue. The star denotes here that it's the center of the sample mass, and then the orange arrow denotes the backdoor flipping samples to the other side. From my pointer, we can see this one is denoting that this is a flipping of the green to the blue. So the straight line denotes the decision boundary, and decision boundary actually separates between two classes. The distance, the length of the orange line also denotes that it's a class distance. So how do we enhance the enlarge the class distance? Naturally, the first intuition we have is to perform an adversarial training. In the adversarial training, for all of the individual input samples are actually enlarged inside the LP norm ball. And then the decision boundary we can see in the picture. The decision boundary is the red curly line. However, the decision boundary and the um, distance between the samples are not really that far away. So we want to maximize the decision boundary and the sample. So we want to enlarge the class distance. So that's why the author says this one is not sufficient. Okay, so they propose a new decision boundary. The first thing is that suppose they have a linking line between the two centers of the sample masses. This linking line, in terms of the math sense, if we draw a decision boundary which is perpendicular to the linking line, we can get the decision boundary that has the maximum class distance between the average of each classes. So the boundary perpendicular to this linking line is called the orthogonalization. So let's start by defining the problem definitions. The goal of this paper is to improve the against backdoors by enlarging pairwise class distances without sacrificing much accuracy. In this paper, when removing injected backdoors, the authors assume that they know 5% of the original training dataset. As for the scope, they only consider the static trigger, which is the one that doesn't change regarding the input. For example, the patch backdoors. There are other types of backdoors like dynamic backdoors, which are reflection backdoors, composite backdoors, and feature space backdoors, but they are not considered in this paper. And the backdoors are label specific in this paper, which means that flip samples from a victim class to the target class. And since both the injected and the normal natural backdoors are harmful, the authors try to incorporate both the injected Poisson model and the naturally present clean model in this paper. So a straightforward idea of model hardening we can think of is in this demonstrated in this picture. So given an input model and the training data, we select the pair, and for each pair we generate a retrain the model to harden, and in the end we will receive the output model which has been hardened. However, there are several problems for this type of approach. The first problem is that different potentials of class pairs. We can see from these two pictures, deer and horse, they are similar in human eyes. So a close pair like deer and horse has a class distance which do not grow much over time. We can see from this chart, we can see that on the y-axis is the class distance, and on the axis is the number of iterations of the training. The orange line denotes the deer and horse class pair, and we can see that the class distance doesn't grow or improve much. So this is the first example. For the second example, with a promising pair like bird and horse, they are actually noticeably different in human eyes. So we can see from the evidence in this plot that the class distance grows over a number of iterations, like from the very start from 0-40, and it grows until here. However, it still have a problem. The distance saturates after certain iterations. After this, it just normalizes. So in order to train each pair to the maximum distance is actually a quadratic complexity because we have to think of the A to B generations of the backdoor from A to B and the generation of the backdoor from the B to A. So we have to consider quadratic complexity. And next thing we can consider is random selections of pairs. But this one is also suboptimal because we can see that different pairs like bird and horse and the deer and horse have various capacities, means that they have the different growth in the class distance. So as a solution, the author first come up with a solution, which is to run a few rounds of optimizations for each and every pair. and use the distance for the further improvement. However, they found that this one also still have the problem of the quadratic complexity. So they try to improve the warm-up stage using the one with the linear complexity by leveraging one round of universal backdoor generation to probe the potential. What it means by universal backdoor is that in order to flip the small set of samples from all classes to a target class, and then we observe the authors observe the loss change of each class to the target. We can know the how promising a pair is by looking at how difficult it is to flip samples using the universal trigger. So we can see down here the pipeline is to given the input models and the training data, we can perform the warm-up stage as a pipeline stage before the pair selections and hardening. And then we can also do the scheduling. Warm-up is actually the very beginning of the starting point. And then we can get more information by leveraging as the training move forward. So we can use scheduler to select a most promising pair for hardening. So how do we do that? We have to, because we have the historical view of the distance improvement, we can accumulate class distance change with the exponential decay. We can calculate the improvement by the change in the current distance over the previous distance. We can see from this picture as a slope. And then we can combine the local improvement and then warm up. So we have added a next step, which is a scheduler in the pipeline. Okay, the next problem that they have is the train two directions separately asymmetrically. The decision it cancels out the training. What it means is that if we do the asymmetric hardening, which is to move the decision boundary from one side. For example, in this picture, if we push the decision boundary from green to blue first, and later if we try to maximize the distance from the blue side to the green side again, the decision boundary we can see from the green dotted line will move back to the original position. So this means that the decision boundary doesn't move and the class distance hardening is just cancel out. So the authors come up with the symmetric hardening, which is to train two directions together. So if we push the decision boundary from both sides of the simultaneously, we can see from this picture that the decision boundary just rotated. Rotated means the class distance improved. And we can see in this picture from the red line, this line still have the perpendicular boundary to the linking line. So we can achieve the maximized class boundary distance. So what is a symmetric hardening? In order to perform a symmetric hardening, we harden the two directions of a pair simultaneously. We generate two-sided backdoors. We introduce two triggers here, trigger A to B and the trigger B to A, and then stamp each of them on each direction of a pair. And then we generate two backdoor triggers simultaneously. So I will explain this picture, this diagram in detail in the next slide. Okay, given the model and the training data, first of all, we can do the warm-up stage, this one. In this warm-up stage, each class is treated as the target class for generating a universal backdoor. And then here we do the optimizations. In it, the changes of loss for different source classes are recorded to update the prior selections. Based on these prior selections from the optimizations, we can use scheduler to select the promising pair, which has the largest class distance increase. So, for example, here we chose the dog and the truck. This symmetric backdoor generation is to get two backdoors here in the step between step 2 and 3. We have two backdoors which are stamped on samples of the classes. These entries of the selected pairs in the post selection metrics are updated to record the distance variations. In this round, next round, we rely on the reward function that combines both the prior selection and the post selection. We do these steps iteratively until we reach the degradation bound. Then we move out from the iterations. And then later, finally, we can get the hardened model as an output that has the larger class distance. For the experiment setup, the authors performed the experiments using the datasets such as CIFAR10, SHVM, SVHN, LISA, and GDSRB. As for the models, they use the variations of ResNet 20, 32, 50, network in network, CNN, and then VGG19. They downloaded 89 pre-trained models, including 30 benign and 56 poised models. As a baseline to compare, they use the universal backdoors for hardening, and they also use the universal adversarial perturbations, UAP, and then later they use the two most famous backdoor erasing approaches such as NC and NAD. For the result of the enlarging class distance, they use the relative improvements of pairwise class distance for all pairs as a metric. In terms of the naturally trained models, we can see from this results that MOD has the largest distance improvement with reasonable time, cost, and accuracy drop. The first column shows the method, the second column shows the accuracy, the third column, the time, the fourth column shows the distance, and the last column, the fifth column, shows the improvements. We can see that MOD has the largest improvement. The distance also, for the distance also, MOD also increases in the largest distance improvement. And then as for the time, it is not the fastest, but yeah, we can see that it has a reasonable time cost comparing with the NC and the universal. And as for the accuracy, comparison between natural and the MOD, it has a very slight drop of accuracy, but it can still retain accuracy as before. For the enlarging class distance result for the adversarial trained model, MOD also has the largest distance improvement in their paper. However, they had a slight degradations in the accuracy up to 0.58%. However, it doesn't decrease in the robustness on average. As for the application, the paper MOD can be used to eliminate the injected backdoors. MOD can reduce the attack success rate from almost 100% to 1% for 59 models. In comparison with the baseline state-of-the-art models, such as NC-NAD, they can only reduce up to 27%. And moreover, they have shared the code open source in their GitHub as in this link. To conclude, this paper proposed a novel model hardening technique, which is the first one that can enlarge class distance, making models resilient to backdoor attacks. MOD can improve class distances by around 177% on average, with only 1% accuracy loss for 48 models. MOD reduces the attack success rate of injected backdoors by 99% on average. It outperforms the state-of-the-art backdoor removal techniques. This is everything I have to present in this paper. I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, Nay, for a very informative presentation. So if anybody has any questions you'd like to put in the chat, or if you'd like to unmute and ask Nay yourself. If not, I do have a few questions for Nay here. So I'm going to post this one in the chat. So Nay, the first question for you is, has this method been tested against adversarial example attacks?
Sorry, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, they have evaluated their method against the adversarial attacks, adversarial example attacks. But because in this paper they use the universal attack perturbations, so they only consider mostly the average of the average of the classes, and they didn't actually experiment it on each and every samples. Therefore, the class distance might still be vulnerable to the backdoor attacks. Yeah, for individual ones, but in general, they can improve. And they propose that this method can be used as a like complementary with other existing backdoor defense. Yeah, they are not meant to be tried standalone. Yeah.
Great. We have another question from Isa. Sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your name. Who asks where we can apply the study in the real world.
For example, in this real world, the backdoor attacks, there are a large number of papers coming out that shows that we can train the adversarial models by poisoning data, input data, to train the backdoor. And for such kinds of data, we can actually use this one to um, harden the class distance and therefore become um, a little bit more invulnerable against that kind of attacks. Yeah. So the I think for example we can say that if it is for some kind of autonomic self-driving cars, for example, if they has been trained with a stop sign with some kinds of perturbations backdoor patches in real time, then the stop sign can be misclassified by the autonomic self-driving car as a speed limit, to increase speed or something like that. Then it will be very dangerous. So to make them more, we can use these kinds of class distance hardening to make the models more robust against the perturbations and backdoor attacks. Yeah.
Isa, do you think that answers your question? Great. Any other participants who want to ask Nay other questions? If not, I have another question for Nay, which is how does the difference in trigger, so semantic trigger and adaptive trigger, affect the hardening process?
Actually, during the hardening of their experiments, the author actually do not differentiate between the triggers, because there are two types of triggers, like you have mentioned in this question. It's a semantic trigger and adaptive trigger. But they consider all of them as harmful, so they use both triggers to enlarge model class distance. So in order to improve its robustness against backdoor attacks. So they don't really classify between two types. They just use both of them together. Yeah, in training them.
I see. Thank you so much for sharing. So any final questions for Nay, or if anyone thinks is wants to know more about this topic, feel free to talk to Nay. So if not, thank you, Nay, so much for your presentation. Let
Thank you, Annie.
me take over the screen now.
Sure.
Okay, 1 second. Great. Okay, great. So thank you everyone for joining us in the week 4 session. Thank you to Nay, who's our speaker. So coming up next in week 5, we'll have another speaker who will introduce to us learning from imbalanced data. So that will be next week, November 12th at the same time on Google Meet. So if you're interested, please come join the session. If you haven't already connected with us on social media, you can also find us on LinkedIn, on Facebook. If you have any questions or if you have anything you want to follow up with our speakers or previous sessions, please feel free to email us as well. We also do have a YouTube channel, so check it out. We're also looking for more volunteers. So if you are a front-end developer, communication coordinator, or a video editor, please reach out to us. Our email can be found at the bottom over here, wai_apac@womeninai.co. And finally, thank you so much for joining our session today. If you don't mind, here is a survey that I'd like our participants to fill out so we can run better sessions in the future. So I'm also going to paste this in the chat. It's really quick. There's only a few questions. So if you don't mind just filling in this survey, that would be great. So yeah, thank you, everyone.